Hi, welcome to our kitchen. Today we're going to make an African staple. This is a thick cornmeal porridge that's eaten in a lot of countries in Africa. The thick porridge is known as pap in South Africa, is known as Sadza in Zimbabwe, in Shona, is known as Nsima or Nsima in Malawi, Zambia, is known as Ugali in Kenya, is known as Fufu in West Africa. So it is a real African-wide dish. And we started with this just because, we have to start with a staple. So this recipe is very simple. All it calls for is your cornmeal or mealie meal or maize meal as it is called, and some water. So we're going to require cold water and boiling water. So this is how we get started. I have a saucepan here or pot, and normally it's good to use one with a handle so you will be able to stir up your cornmeal as it is cooking. But if you don't have one, don't sweat it. It's fine. You can use one that you have. So I've got my saucepan here, and I'm going to be using cornmeal. Normally it's wonderful to use your white cornmeal. Don't use yellow. White is the one that's mostly accepted. In the United States, if you can find one that's called degerminated cornmeal, that would be the better one to use, because we find all kinds of cornmeal in the grocery stores. But if you can find one that says degerminated, that would be nice. There are other varieties like this. This is a pre-cooked, which is easier if you're not used to making this dish. So today we're going to use one that's from this brand here, and it is a degerminated cornmeal. So I'm going to start my dish. I'm going to use a wooden spoon. This is one of the wooden spoons that's used basically in most countries in Africa. It is a flat wooden spoon, flat on either side, and it makes it easier as you are, cooking your cornmeal porridge, the thick cornmeal porridge. If you don't have that, don't sweat it. You can use your normal wooden spoon, and just make sure you use one that's steady enough, that's thick, that's not too fimble, because it will break as you're cooking. There's another kind of spoon that is also available in Africa. This one is just used for dishing purposes, just to make your dish look wonderful. If you don't have this, you don't sweat it, but I'll show you how you use it, and you don't have to have one. So here we go. So I'm going to start with my cornmeal. The recipe itself calls for 2 cups of cornmeal, but as we get started, we're going to use 1 cup, which I'm going to put in here. Remember, I haven't started my heat yet, there's no stove. So I'm putting 1 cup of cornmeal, and I'm putting 1 cup of cold water. So this is what you would use first. I've got my spoon here. I'm going to use the traditional kind, and I'm going to mix it up. The reason we start with cold water is because we want our cornmeal not to form any lumps. So you can see with the cold water, we're gonna do this, mix it up, take out all the lumps from the stove, and so here we go. 1 cup cold water, 1 cup cornmeal. So now I've got my my thick porridge ready to go. I'm going to switch on, put it on heat, switching on my stove here, and I'm going to let it just warm up a little bit. Just a little bit. Don't let it get hot because before you put your boiling water in it. Okay, so here we go. I'm just stirring it as we go so that I don't form lumps. So the most important thing with this dish is that you keep stirring it so that you don't have any lumps. So now it is just a little bit warm. I'm going to put my boiling water. So I've got 2 cups of boiling water. So I am left-handed, so I'm going to do this with my other hand. There we go. I'm putting in my boiling water slowly, and the reason is because I don't want to form any lumps in my dish. So here we go. This is 2 cups of boiling water. So I've put all of it in here. So I'm going to keep stirring, and I've got my heat on high. I'm going to keep stirring till it starts boiling. And what will happen is that the cornmeal is going to become thick as it gets hotter on the stove. So now, after just a couple minutes, my cornmeal is becoming thicker. I'm just going to wait for it to start boiling. And so what I'm going to do is to simmer it, just reduce the heat a little bit, cover it, and let it simmer so that the cornmeal can get cooked. You can see it's starting to boil, so be careful because cornmeal, it starts boiling and it splatters all over the place and you might get yourself burnt. Okay, so here we go. You can see it's boiling. I'm going to cover it, simmer for just a couple minutes and let the cornmeal cook. So as it's going like this, I'm going to tell you that there are other varieties that people would use. Some people feel that maybe it's tasteless because it doesn't have your sugar or salt or cheese, and other people might want to make variety like that. But traditionally, it's just cooked the way it is. No flavoring, no spicing or anything. It's just your basic cornmeal with water. And this is because this dish is normally eaten with a relish or a beef, chicken, vegetables, and that's the part that gives the flavor. But this part here is just the staple, which gives you your carbohydrates. So I'm going to let it simmer as it's boiling just for a couple minutes, and then we're going to come back and add more of the cornmeal to finish our dish. Okay, so my cornmeal has been, I've got here something to just to hold so I don't burn my hand. It's been boiling, and now it's ready for us to add more cornmeal. So depending on your altitude, sometimes the cornmeal that you add in here might be less than what I'm showing you here. I live in a very high altitude, so I'm going to use just half more cup to a cup, depending on the thickness you're looking for. Now, the thickness of this cornmeal depends on the country that it's coming from. Most of the Southern African countries, this recipes is it calls for a much thinner dish. But as you move to the eastern part or to the west part of Africa, the dish becomes a little bit thicker. So the way you serve it is the way, however you feel. Right now, I'm just adding the cornmeal slowly. I'm not putting all of it. I had 1 cup in here. I'm probably going to just end up using half a cup because I don't want my dish to be too thick. So you can see the way I'm making it. I've got this. If you had your normal wooden spoon, you would use the back part of it. And I'm just holding it that way so that I can push the cornmeal towards the wall of the pot. And that way it will be crushing all the lumps that come with it. So in my recipe here, I've just used half more cup just to make it thicker, because that's how we serve it. So remember that my recipe called for, I had 1 cup of cornmeal in here, and I've just used half more cup, but you could use up to a cup depending on the cornmeal you use and the altitude where you live. So there we go. I am just stirring it up and pushing it towards the wall. However you want to cook it, it's fine, just as long as you're crushing all those lumps. So here it is. I like this consistency, I like this thickness. So there's my dish. It's still on low heat. I didn't pump up the heat. So also, depending on the cornmeal you're using, you might want to just let it reduce the heat a little bit more and just let it sit there so that your cornmeal cooks a little bit more. So in fact, my dish is all done. I'm going to show you how we serve it. So I've had my dish on the stove just for a minute, just to let the cornmeal cook. So here it is. So I'm done with it. So if you don't have this traditional way of dishing it, all you have to do is, because I've used a saucepan that's not non-stick, so I can just pour it in my dish where I'm going to dish it. Just put it in there and it'll all just come out and put it in there. This is the reason we also say don't use a non-stick, because it'll get all that other stuff into your dish. But I'm going to show you the nice way of dishing it, and you could do this even with your little spoon. I'm going to use cold water and use that big dishing spoon that I have. And here I'm switching off my heat here, and I take just a little bit of it, put in my dishing thing here, and because it's got water it won't stick. So there we go. I put it in water again, dip it in water, just because I don't want the cornmeal to stick on my wooden spoon. And then we put it right on the side, just like that, till I'm done with all of it. This recipe calls for a serving size of 2 to 4 people. So there is my thick porridge, or pap, or sadza, or fufu, or ugali. So this is what it will look like. And so next, in our next recipes, I'm going to show you all the other dishes that we can eat with this pap. And you will see how it's served. But this is the most basic of African dishes. If you know how to cook this and you're entertaining your guests, this is a very good way to start. And this is why we have this as our very first dish on our channel. Thank you so much and enjoy.